Welcome, sales associates and budding sales professionals, to Property Careers Prospector School online, where we talk about all of the avenues that lead into foothold and getting you to bite into your real estate career and eventually establish yourself as a player, whether it be that you're supporting a sales professional or endeavoring to move into that space yourself. There is no more powerful thing than knowing how to locate qualified, active property sellers at will. Today's session is one where we will be talking largely about lockdown. It's been almost impossible to avoid COVID and the invariable lockdown. If nothing else, by those of you that are looking at the audio visual on this can see, I've decided to grow a lockdown beard and the hair's sort of out of control. I would never, not even think about trying to do a DIY version on either. I mean, of course I could shave that beard off, but the hair, I just think I'll leave it be. So it's my little way of protesting in and around lockdown. But some other salespeople, some other sales associates seem, at least to my mind, to have had another approach to running or looking at the lockdown situation and how they embrace the issues that I guess have been laid out to them. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it's an opportune time to take a mini break if you're afforded one, especially if you've been working in the real estate industry for some time. But being the eternal optimist that I am, I also look at other opportunities inside the real estate space. For a long time, I've always said, and those of you that are relatively new, I'll reiterate this so that you can understand where I'm coming from. You know, I look at the real estate industry as it's more than a career, it's a career lifestyle. There is not really a demarcation line, insofar as I can tell, between work and play. I mean, let's face it, what do we do for a living? Well, we pretty much talk to people for a living. Now, I know that we need a break away from that, but generally speaking, talking to people is something that caused me to come into the industry in the first place. And as I've said many times, from the day that I walked into real estate, I thought to myself, how long has this been going on? This isn't work. And I haven't felt that I've worked a day in my career since. Now, that disposition is greatly enhanced if you are afforded the opportunity to produce to a level of surplus where you're not only over the moon with what you're earning, you've got considerably more, and then it becomes a career that you've founded or stumbled upon of luck. You're just grateful every day for actually having been born into this. I mean, we get to wear clean clothes to work, we come home in clean clothes. Our time is generally our own. And I don't think that's a lot different in and around with the obstacles that lockdown has invariably dealt us. Now, you get a choice. You can look at those obstacles and you can run from it, or you can give up, as I see a lot of people do, or in a milder sense, you can say, well, the lockdown has been so draconian that it's not affording me the opportunity to run prospecting protocols as I normally would. Therefore, I'll just take a break and wait for all of those restrictions to be lifted, and then I can go back to embracing everything that's in front of me. Got to say this, got to be very blunt about it. Those that are doing that are probably waiting for failure. And to be honest with you, I mean, if I were out there doing this right now, I'd be reliant upon the fact that my competitors were taking a break and waiting for the restrictions to clear. As a simple example, we've had cases, you know, I've got clients I deal with in the Victorian market, in metropolitan Melbourne. One in particular that just last week sold a property, and the people that they sold the property to listed their property with this agent. And the reality is that this agent has not shaken the hand of the owners of this property. They've not met in person, and they've purchased a property without physically inspecting it. Yes, you might ask whether there's some legal questions around it. These seem to have been overcome by all the lawyers, and the deal's been done, the sale's been made, and the listing's been made. Now, this doesn't come from having a negative attitude, and I'm not necessarily saying that you need to start thinking about how you can break the law or the rules of lockdown to do this. What I'm saying is that you still need to engage. You still need to look at this business, this career that you've chosen as a lifestyle choice, and imbue your lifestyle with all of the issues that surround real estate, not looking at it as work, but instead looking at it as a lifestyle and feeling grateful for the opportunity to earn money for just talking to people and knowing what to say and do in any situation. There's that rant over. What I want to talk to you about, practically speaking, is this. If we're now in September, so we're coming in, well, we're not coming in, we're in spring. Spring has started. This is traditionally the time of year when a lot of other properties come to the market. I'm fully of the belief that that's going to still continue to happen, notwithstanding that there's a lot of reluctance in and around the stuff that happens with COVID, with lockdowns, that sort of thing. But, you know, generally speaking, if you're in where I am in New South Wales, we are in 10 big weeks of lockdown. If you're in the southern states of Australia, you know, you're in 7th but in lockdown number 6, 7, 5th, I don't know what it is. Of course, you've had the same there in New Zealand. That's been quite protracted, and at level 4, it was quite draconian. The restrictions they had, again, not allowed to show properties, not allowed to do listing presentations, that sort of thing. So you've just got to start to be versatile and look at it for what it is. But I believe that it truly starts, it begins with understanding that you need to engage in conversation with anyone that is a property owner, especially those that have shown signs of being an active property seller, and restore some degree of confidence. If you look at it from their perspective right now, if you look at it from the perspective of a property owner that had on the cards in their plans to make a move, much of what's going on right now would leave you feeling pretty cold. And your lack of confidence, I reckon your degree of patience would be spent. If you've been in the state of lockdown for a number of weeks now, you've probably just about had enough. And then it falls to us inside the profession, initially at least, to restore some confidence around that, to tell them that it's okay. One of the best lines that I can give you, and I hope you're writing this down right now, and it's one that you could use with most clients that you're talking to. Yes, I understand the situation we're in, but isn't it better to look toward what happens when this does lift? And I can tell you that invariably, in almost every case, it's not going to stay the same. It might for a little while yet, but it will not stay the same. And the future arrives. So what are we going to do by holding the future, by putting the future into clear view and having that in mind instead of what is? You see, there's already lockdown dates predicted. We already know that they're, you know, so in New South Wales, where I am right now, they're saying the end of September. Now, that may or may not be the case. You know, level 4 has gone to level 3 in the land of the long white cloud. Yeah, so now we can actually show properties again. Yes, there are restrictions around that. You can't run open for inspections. There are limitations on the number of people you can take through. And that might change. That might lift as things get easier, or it might be protracted. It might, you know, and again, we might end up going back to level 4 dependent upon what goes on. You have to be prepared for whatever comes your way. And what I keep saying to people over and over again, stop trying to control the issues that are beyond the realms of your control and instead control what you can. Now, I know for a fact that once you've actually engaged a property seller, those that are looked upon favorably over a period of time are those, and I've said this many, many times, that offer advice instead of price. Price is an argument you can't win. And right now, anyone that would be game enough to predict with any accuracy where a property sits in terms of value would be an absolute raving lunatic. Who's to say where it's going to go? But what you can do is you can predict with clarity that people will continue to move house. Properties will continue to list. People will continue to sell. Buyers will continue to make inquiries. Now, if you're one of those agents that's just sat back and decided to have a mini break and you're not engaging in conversation, when this market, when your market relative to your area then re-engages and kickstarts, it's the agents that have developed a relationship through embarking on a series of conversations and the supply of information in this interim period, in this lockdown, that are going to prevail. So I'm sitting with many agents at the moment, and some that are working in teams where you've got a sales associate supporting a sales professional. And I'm just openly saying to them, lift your sights on the number of listings that you want to get. Oh yeah, but we can't go and do listing presentations. I know, but when do they say you can? At the end of this month. And if they don't lift all the restrictions by the end of this month, surely they'll lift some sort of restriction whereby you can, or they can at least start to get the real estate market re-engaged and you can go and see people. So does it matter if you list this property now or in 4 weeks' time? What matters is that you definitely list it in 4 weeks' time. So we have to embark on the conversations that make perfect sense. We also have to be demonstrative in showing to prospective sellers that we are able to get around the market. What do? Well, it's pretty simple. Those of you that use the Property Marketer Suite, that do have our software available and are able to engage around what we call two-view websites, I would be talking to prospective sellers about the idea of getting their property onto an individual property website and then pushing it out. Now, you might say, well, we can't get professional photography done. Well, what's wrong with one of these? What's wrong with a mobile phone? It's got all these fancy cameras in it, and a lot of your clients have access to those cameras. I know they're not professional shots, but why can't they then take some shots, you put them up into an individual property website on the two-view platform, and then you run those promotions out, at the very least just showing buyers. The buyers are still there. So if you can compile a spreadsheet of buyers in various price ranges, then you can actually have conversations with incumbent sellers specifically about buyers that you would bring to their property the moment you are permitted to, or indeed if you could do that in an electronic fashion. Now, some of you might be sitting there going, what's this got to do with anything? It's got a lot to do with everything, because it's those agents that are having those conversations. It's those agents that are presenting those courses around those obstacles that as it lifts, they will be looked upon favorably as the agent of choice going forward. Now more than ever, instead of looking at this as adversity, you should be looking at the situation for the opportunity it presents to demonstrate to prospective clients your propensity to get around the obstacles that are laid out before you. Now, of course, you want to do this in tandem with the sales professional. So, of course, if there's those prospects that you are engaging and talking to that are yet to actually have a discussion with a sales professional and you're supporting that sales professional, well, here lies your opportunity to pre-sell them. I would be saying this is an opportune time for us to maybe get online, whether it be through a Zoom meeting. Those of you that that already have listing pad, you should be able to actually present listing presentations online through a Zoom platform where you can actually share the iPad and run that through as a presentation to prospective sellers. You know, to be honest with you, even if you didn't, I'd be more than happy to engage with someone on a one-on-one conversation and run my presentation relatively effectively around that. Now, for you guys that are on here, that's just a pre-sell to your sales professional. So, you know, you can suggest many ways that we can get around it. And then I would just say, look, I think the best thing that you can do, at least with the buyers that we have on file, is talk to our professional around what can be done. You should be getting through the results. You should be explaining to them that sellers are still selling and buyers are still buying. Now, we don't want to, you want to tamper the amount as well. And I've said this many, many times, you've got to balance out the direct contact with what we call passive contact. So passive contact is where you are sending them information, you are sending them advice, you are sending them sales that have occurred or news that has come to hand without directly calling them. So we don't want to get to a point where you're calling them too much. That's as ridiculous as not calling them at all, because this can be off-putting. But inside of your conversations, yes, you can acknowledge the obstacles of lockdown, but I think it's important that you are positive and upbeat about how you can beat the ramifications of COVID, of lockdown, and move forward. And that, again, a reiteration that people are selling. It's almost like you've got to jump in there and talk them off the wall. You see, there's enough negativity out there, and especially in those areas where the lockdown has been protracted, it's reached a point where people are fed up. They're tired of it. So if you can jump on there and humor them somewhat, if you can make light of the situation, if you can explain that people are still anxious to move forward and that opportunities are going to exist, and you become that light, you become that beacon of positivity, which is where you have to be as a salesperson, then when it comes time, when the fog lifts, when people are ready to do it, you will be at the front of the queue. Now comes another one. So often I'm seeing this. What can you guys do about engaging active property sellers now? So the other big one that I want to talk about is the sales inquiry log. Now, I've seen way too many salespeople negate this source, and in particular right now, to engage. I'm going to say this again slowly so that we all understand this, and I've shared this with you guys many, many times before. Sellers, active property sellers, when they move from dormancy to active, go through three particular stages. The first is the researching of the market. So a lot of sellers are still in that stage. And when they're researching the market, when they're independently researching other property sales, other properties that are available ahead of trying to figure out the value of their property in direct correlation to their motive and what they're trying to do. And they're inquiring, whether it be on welcome coming to open for inspections, whether it be on online inquiry. In fact, just yesterday I was talking to someone about this. I don't know whether any of you have noticed, but there are quite a lot of inquiries that come in where they're an online inquiry and the inquirer leaves their return email address, but not their mobile telephone number. Now, I've yet to meet a buyer that's will not volunteer their mobile phone number for you to contact them, to call them up should any other property arise. So I've always understood that when you get delinquent inquiry that is void of a mobile telephone number, that they can't actually be buyers. They are more than likely either competitors trying to find some information out on a listing that you've got. Sure, that can be the case, but generally speaking, they are property researchers, which of course means they are property sellers, active property sellers researching the market ahead of selling. So we have a return email. If you'd like to get hold of it, just simply give me an email, Mark, just send it to my sales trainer, mark@salestrainer.com.au, and I can give you the dialogue of the words that you can send to that person who's only left an email address and not their mobile phone number. And I reckon that you'll be able to secure that information coming back. You just have to recognize, you have to be open and transparent about the fact that people do research the market ahead of selling. Now, this is important because this period takes a minimum of 4 weeks to as long as 12 weeks. Now, I've discovered in a lot of the offices that I'm talking to that are recording inquiries, and let's face it, because most markets have had a shortage of available property, there's been an unprecedented amount of inquiry for each new listing that hits the market. Yet, I see that most agents have not diligently followed up on that sales inquiry at the 4-week mark and longer, so between 4 and 12 weeks. That inquiry, which is at least 4 weeks to as long as 12 weeks, that's 3 months old, is the place to go for prospecting. Now, before all of you start to say to me, I've done a little bit of that, no, I haven't had much inquiry, I'm telling you, not suggesting to you, I'm telling you that 1 in 5 of those inquirers has a property that they are looking to sell. I know that some of them might have already sold, but generally speaking, the conversion ratio is 1 in 5. If you're not getting those conversion ratios, you're either not calling them at all, or you're not saying the right thing when you're speaking to them. And I have discovered that this particular area is strongly neglected right now. And it would be the first port of call that I would be engaging in, because I know, yes, some of those active property sellers have hung their hat up or they've put everything on hold, but what better time to talk to them, run the qualification, engage with them, get them onto your chase list, your active property seller chase list, and then be giving them all of the contact that you need, both direct and passive, so that again, when the lockdown clears, you're in the box seat and you can move into listing, almost playing catch up on what you may be not listing now. And it's very simplistic dialogue that I run. So I would call back and I'd say, hello, John, is it? Hi, John. Look, I noticed that you had an inquiry on a property. Goodness me. It was back in July of this year. Have you purchased as yet? I let them speak. The moment they stop speaking, I just say, do you have something to sell? And those of you that are listening to this, not looking at it, you would not know that I'm actually nodding my head. And I hope that's coming out in my voice inflection. Do you have something to sell? Because I want to just ascertain this. And the moment that people say, yeah, matter of fact, we do, or they might say, not until we find something to buy in the market store, we can't get out to look at anything, so we're not willing to put our property on the market. Doesn't matter what they say. I just then move into motive. So where are you coming from? And they'll tell me. And if that's different to the property that they were inquiring on, I say, so were you looking at this property to purely compare it to your own, or was this one that you were considering buying? And then the conversation's open. Where do you want to move to? How soon do you plan to be there? How is this all affecting it? And I just start to talk to them about all the things that we can do to move them forward. If they're then talking about buying without having sold, I can then move into a statement of saying that could be dangerous, and all the other little bits and pieces that engage. My message to all of you right now, whether you're in a state of lockdown or you've got some form of restriction that is making it difficult, is make sure you are engaging in conversations every day. The reason I bring the sales inquiry log up is because I know for a fact that anyone that appears in a sales inquiry log may not have the capacity to buy or sell real estate, but they certainly have the willingness. And this is not cold calling. This is warm prospecting at worst and productive prospecting at best. My name's Mark Dwyer. You can reach me at Mark with a K at propertycareers.com.au. My phone number +61 410 592 165. And I look forward to chatting with you on the next installation of Property Careers Prospector School online.